As you can imagine, after a spring outing, he was hiding on the road, lucky to be spotted by the patrolling cop, considering he was already on the brink of disaster, with no time to get to the hospital. He delivered his injured self to the town's doctor, and after a heroic effort, he miraculously survived, waking up in no time. After 2.5 days of luxurious recovery, his injuries were slowly mending, and he also noticed that no one dared to touch his bag while he was lying here. He soon walked with a limp, a miracle to ordinary people. Seo Yishin suspected there was more to him. This is a peaceful town. The local customs were simple, skies bright, and people warm. Chan Shekson hoped to find a job here for a peaceful life, but sunshine has its shadows. One day while strolling, he noticed a motorcycle gang collecting protection money, and their leader threatening the shop owner, Yu. He could clearly hear the cries from within, and with so many people around, he could only keep his cool. Finally, as the gang was about to leave, he calmly turned around, mentally noting the names of those thugs, and elegantly walked away. Even with the face full of bruises, he politely nodded at Shanshu, who returned the gesture while keeping a watchful eye on those arrogant thugs. He quietly added those guys to his death wish list. Obviously, this man was so brash because his brother, Vincent, was the local big. They were now plotting to take over the whole town by opening casinos and resorts, and just because the owner rejected his offer, he had his henchmen take care of the landlord's father. So the residents living here had unfortunately become their footstools, with the threatened shop owner, Yu, being one of them. That night, the doctor found Shanshu basically healed when checking his injuries. Shanshu curiously asked why the doctor didn't call the police when he was shot. "Aren't you worried I'm the bad guy?" The doctor said that just as he was walking to the square, he suddenly saw everyone running in one direction like there was a fire drill. Turns out, Yu's shop was on fire, and the owner was panicking since it contained all his life savings of business he worked so hard to build. Shanshu knew right away this was the work of that gang, turning around to glimpse at those guys before heading into the church, not to pray, but to confess his upcoming act. Confessing about what he was planning to do. Meanwhile, Officer Gio discovered a lead through the surveillance footage clearly capturing the arsonist's face, and he quickly made a call to chase the vehicle information, but the very call put him on the mob's radar. When the cop picked up his daughter, things turned. His colleague had already taken her, and Gio realized she might be in danger. He hurried home, only to find his daughter being held tightly by a suspicious person. As he was about to rescue his daughter, an enemy attacked him from behind, and then he was completely overpowered by Deluin, who happened to be Vincent. Ruthless and merciless, he could do anything bad. It turns out Gio was just about to investigate their arson when someone tipped off Deluin. With the gun at his daughter's head, Deluin warned Gio, this was just a lesson, don't mess up again. He would definitely make Gio's daughter pay a heavy price. Gio arrived at the clinic, where Dr. N helped patch him up, and Uncle Dan happened to see the whole scene. He learned from the doctor about the vile deeds Deluin and his men were up to. That evening, while Gio's family was dining at a restaurant, that gang came back for trouble. Apparently, the reason they spared him during the day was so he could do them a favor. They wanted Gio to use his cop status to help them get about, and help them smuggle some goods. The restaurant fell silent enough to hear a pin drop. Nobody dared say a word. Deluin, feeling smug, glanced at Uncle Dan, only to see him staring intensely. It sent shivers down his spine. Confident in his numbers, he boldly approached Uncle Dan, thinking no one would dare touch him here. Little did he know, the outsider he was facing was not someone easily pushed around like the villagers. He reached to teach Uncle Dan a lesson, but was instantly restrained. Uncle Dan held his arm firmly. With just a little more pressure, he'd be sincerely expressing himself right there. Following Uncle Dan's orders, Deluin, in agony, expelled all his goons from the restaurant. Then he was forced to hand over his gun. Becoming a helpless baby, he shuffled out of the restaurant in shame. Unfortunately, he didn't learn his lesson and quickly rallied his crew for revenge against Uncle Dan. Just then, his car came, ramming a goon into a wall. The driver vanished too. Deluin was totally dumbfounded, and the next second, Uncle Dan took him out with a wine bottle like it was a scene from a comedy. As Deluin pulled out a knife to counter, Uncle Dan raised his hands and smiled, making for a comical scene. Their fighting abilities were light years apart. The knife in his hand became a toy that would backfire. How ironic. In just 2 seconds, he eliminated everyone, watching Deluin slowly fade away before turning back to his drink like nothing. The next day, a swarm of cops arrived at the scene, looking at the fallen and feeling not a bit of sorrow, but rather a sense of glee, because those guys were all past, yet it was far from over, since Vincent's brother, the mob boss, was among them. He certainly wouldn't let it go easily. Upon hearing about this, the chief rushed to Vincent's house, making the atmosphere tense in an instant. Vincent hosted his brother's funeral as the chief advised saying business came first, revenge later. But this mob boss had no interest in listening to wisdom, and he was furious that the killer got away. The chief's advice fueled Vincent's rage, still seeking his brother's killer, yet urged to be good. In a fit of rage, Vincent plunged a knife into the chief, while his goon whipped out a dagger. They brutally hacked off the chief's hand and told him to carry an ice bucket, suggesting he hurry to the hospital to get it reattached.